A week later, I received a letter from none other than the Master King himself, Dabir. It was an invitation letter to the ceremony held for the Great Knights every time new Great Knights were chosen. I knew that Caesar had received this letter too. I haven't seen him since the finals, and I didn't know how to feel about this. On one hand, I was happy. My goal was achieved. I have become a great knight, like my father and my grandfather before me. But on the other, my relationship with Caesar and Lucana went downhill, and both due to my own mistakes. Stupid mistakes that could have and should have been avoided. But one cannot fix the past. Something that I had to relearn over and over and over again. Something that still haunts me to this day. The event was taking place tomorrow at Master King's own palace, so I knew I mustn't be late. I woke up early the next day and set off. I arrived before the ceremony started, and so did the other knights. I saw Diablo the Heavy, talking to Moteas the Shiny. I saw Caesar, who just stood silently in the corner, and I saw him, the Master King. He was a beetle of unknown kind. All we knew about him was that, along with Stagiron, he was the eldest bug in Castana. There he was, standing in front of his throne, wearing a big crown that was made of material unknown to me. He was a figure that, with his presence alone, struck a unique kind of fear, hope, and respect in the bodies of anyone who looked at him. He was observing us for a few moments before saying in a powerful, deep voice, "Welcome, my great knights." All four of us bowed as soon as Master King spoke. "Raise your heads, four great knights," he said, and we listened. "Before the ceremony starts, there is one more that shall appear," Dabir said. One more? I think to myself. I knew that Caesar and I were chosen as great knights, but who else could there be? I think about this for a few moments before realizing, oh, well, of course, there were always 5, so there had to be one more. And the only one who would fit that role would be someone that left a big impression in the showdown. Someone like... "I apologize on behalf of my daughter and myself, Master King." An all-familiar voice could be heard behind us. Stagiron. And he was not alone. Besides him stood the princess herself, Lucana. "It is my fault, and my fault alone, Dabir, old friend," Stagiron apologized. The Master King nodded and smiled. "It is important that you are here, now. Let us begin the ceremony, 5 great knights." I look around me. The others are just as surprised as I am. They all wanted to ask the Master King the same question, but none dared speak up. How and why? Dabir surely knew that this was the case, as the very next thing he did was explain the situation. "For generations, there have always been 5 great knights, 5 protectors of Castana. The citizens are used to the old story. The 5 great knights, the strongest warriors of the kingdom, gather every 12 seasons to defeat Ozara, the Grand Menace. But due to the last time Ozara visited us, ended up with all 5 great knights dead, we came to a unique problem. One that we never had to face in the history of the Castanean kingdom. Namely, we needed 5 new great knights. A whole new generation of great knights. There have always been casualties when the knights in Ozara battled, but it has never been more than a night or two. especially not all five. It was common practice that two finalists of the so-called Ultimate Showdown would end up becoming the new Great Knights. But this time that would not be nearly enough, as that would mean only two knights would end up facing Ozara when the time came. So I had to come up with a way to find new five Great Knights before the Grand Menace striked again. And the only way to do so would be holding two showdowns instead of only one. But having the finalists of both showdowns become new Great Knights would still only end up being four knights, not five, like me and the citizens of my kingdom wanted. So that left me with the question, who could become the fifth knight? I approached my good old friend, the Heitelness Stageron, with this dilemma, and he proposed a solution. One of his own children would become the fifth great knight. But to decide which one, he had sent two of his eldest sons, Stager and Stegar, along with his daughter Lucana, to the tournament. The one who would end up the furthest in the tournament would become the fifth great knight. And, well, you can all see who that is. Master King pointed at Lucana, who was standing beside her father. As for the ceremony itself, it is simply a humble feast I hold. I hereby ask you, five great knights, as well as his Heitelness Stageron, to follow me, Master King said as he got up from his throne. He entered one of the rooms and we did as he asked. We followed him inside. It was a big hall with a single long, expensive-looking table. On the table there were all kinds of delicatessens from all around Castania. The honey pies from the kingdom of Hornest, the Montesian tribes cooked orbs from the very top of the Castanean tree, served with a delicious black orb nectar, the all too familiar leaf muffins filled with fruit the seasonal wind brings us from the outside world, a uniquely prepared specialty from the mysterious web pit, a tale of the beast named Lizardo, a beast the spiders trapped inside the root prison, whom they only keep alive for its unique ability to grow its delicious tail back, prepared in a special type of spider silk, and, of course, the infamous crumbs from the good old anthill. Needless to say, there was something for everyone. We all sat down. I sat in between Diablo and Dabir. They were the only ones here I felt comfortable to be sitting next to. This was mostly due to me knowing next to nothing about both. The only things I did know were that Dabir was our Master King and that Diablo won the last showdown. And that was about it. I look at the others. All of them make me feel uncomfortable for different reasons. I look at Moteas, I feel jealousy. I look at Lucana, I feel regret. I look at Caesar, I feel sadness. I look at Stageron, I feel shame. Dabir poured some of the black orb nectar into his cup, then said, "First, I want to make a toast to my good friend Stageron." The Beetle King lifted his cup and nodded in gratitude. "Then, I want to make a toast to the five great knights. Diablo the Heavy, Moteas the Shiny, Caesar the Cunning, Dan the Mighty, and Lucana the Sharp." All five of us lifted our cups when we heard our names. "Long live the great knights," the Master King said. Then he took a sip out of his nectar. All of us did the same. "Well, what are you waiting for? Eat. Enjoy the delicatessen I have served you. Be proud. You are this kingdom's hope. You are this kingdom's life." The bear's face was filled with pure happiness. One could feel the enormous love that he had for this kingdom, for its citizens. And so we ate. We feasted on all the different food that was in front of us. I have never tasted anything better. Not before, not after. After the feast had finished, the Master King explained how, for the next 3 seasons, we would travel across Castana. We would visit every kingdom and hold a speech. Convince the citizens that we will defeat the Grand Menace once he shows up. Give the bugs of Castana the hope that was fading away after the last 5 knights died. After that, up until the moment Ozara ultimately showed up, we would live inside the Master King's chambers. We would live and train there, getting ready for the clash that would decide the fate of the kingdom. Our first destination was the kingdom of Hornest, Caesar's home. As the 6 of us, that being the 5 great knights and Dabir, were traveling there, I could sense Caesar's nervousness. Yet I didn't say a word to him. I didn't know how, or what to say after everything. We were traveling slowly, mostly due to the bear being the slowest bug I have ever met. We spent multiple nights on the road, camping, you could say, and during one of those nights, someone came up to me. Diablo. "Hello," he said in a friendly tone. "Hello," I said, a little coldly, I admit. "So, Dan, we're going to spend a lot of time here, and I just want us to be friends, alright?" Diablo said. "Sure," I reply. "Good. So, Dan, I know that we've just met recently, but I can see that something is bothering you, and I want you to know that whatever it is, I'll be here if you need someone to listen to you. You seem like you could use a good listener. So, when you're ready, just know that I am here." Diablo smiled. He was honest, I could feel it. He genuinely wanted to help me, to listen to me. I was moved by this. Thank you, Diablo, I stutter. You are right, I do need someone to listen to me. That night I opened up to Diablo, who at the time was a complete stranger to me. A stranger that I knew I would end up living with for at least the next 4 seasons. Telling him what I was going through was a big risk. I did not and could not know if his intentions were good or bad, but something inside me told me that I could put my trust into Diablo. Something told me that he was telling the truth, that he would become a good friend. And so I listened to my guts. I told him everything. Every mistake I've made, every regret I have, and also how I don't know what to do about it all. I spoke and he listened. He carefully listened, paying attention to every single detail I said. He listened to it all and gave me his honest opinion. "I see. That is a lot. I hope you're feeling better after letting it all out, after telling someone about it." I do, thank you. I was relieved. Feeling this relief told me that I was right to trust my guts. It was a correct decision to open up to Diablo. "No, the way I see it, Caesar just acted impulsively. I don't think he truly meant what he said back there. I really don't think that he will never forgive you. And I think he knows this too. I think he is aware that he had overreacted. But I think that his pride is preventing him from talking to you about it, from apologizing." "Don't you think that I am the one who should apologize? After all, I am the one who threw away the match. The match that I know meant a lot to Caesar." I was confused. "I think that both of you need to apologize to one another. And I also think that after you do, things will go back to how they were. You really think so, Diablo? I asked. He smiled and answered. Yes, strong bones like yours do not tumble down over such trivial things. As for Lucana, unfortunately, I do not have advice. I am not really good with the latest thing and all that. Sorry. No need to be sorry, Diablo. Thank you, really. I really mean it. I clumsily expressed my gratitude to the warrior that would end up becoming one of my greatest friends. Lord rest his soul. Poor Diablo. I will forever miss you, fallen friend. Just a day before we arrived at our first destination, the Kingdom of Hornest, I came up to Caesar and spoke to him. He was walking alone. He did not speak to anyone since our trip started. At least, not as far as I could tell. Hey, I awkwardly say. He looked at me and replied. Hey, Don. We stood there for a few moments, in the most uncomfortable silence you could imagine, before I spoke up. Listen, Caesar, No, you! Listen, then, he interrupted me. I'm sorry, okay? I overreacted that day. I overreacted and I fucking know it, alright? I shouldn't have said what I said. I didn't mean it. And I hope that you can forgive me. Of course I forgive you, Caesar, but I should also apologize to you. I shouldn't have thrown the match away like that. I know how much it meant to you. I know how much you were looking forward to that match. We hadn't sparred ever since you beat me back in the Gladiator's Paradise. You were looking forward to a rematch. I can't turn back time, but I promise you this, Caesar. The next time we battle, I will go all out. Caesar smiled. You better keep that promise, alright? You bet I will, I reply with a smile on my face. We hug. It feels like the old times. Diablo was right. I later come up to Diablo to thank him for his advice. I did not expect to come to terms with Caesar this quickly, let alone feel that bond again, even if it was for but a single moment. I'm just glad I could be of help, he simply replied when I thanked him. He looked genuinely happy that he helped. He was a great warrior, but before all, he was a great bug. And an amazing friend. The following day we arrived at Hornest. First, we were greeted by the Queen herself. We are shown the luxurious rooms that were assigned to us. The rooms were stationed on the 4th floor of the Hexagon Tower, the floor right below the Queen's bedchamber. We would stay there for the following week. This would be the case in each of the kingdoms as we would visit. First, we would slowly travel to our next destination, camping in the tunnels. When we arrived, we would be greeted by the queen or the king of that particular kingdom. We would be shown the rooms where we would stay, usually the most luxurious that part of the kingdom could offer. We would be fed the best of the best food there was. On the 3rd day of our visit, Master King the Bear would hold his big speech in front of the whole city, the same speech that he would be holding every 12 seasons. It was the same speech every time, simple words of encouragement. He would convince the citizens that us, the 5 great knights, would once again end up victorious against the Grand Menace. Our job during this trip was simple. All we had to do was stand next to the bear, as he held the speech. That was it. We just stood there, looking powerful, feeling powerful. The speech would always end up the same way. The bear would pronounce our names one by one. When we heard our name, we would wave at the amused citizens who were listening below us. After the last name was pronounced, the entire city would repeat the following phrase 3 or 4 times. Long live the great knights! And each time I heard it, I felt like I was on top of the world. I forgot all my problems, all my issues. I just couldn't help but feel immeasurable joy in those moments. The hope that our sole existence gave to the common Castanean citizen was something truly special. It was a proof that I have made it, that I have achieved my dream of standing where my father once stood. All that was left to prove that I was worthy of the title was by fulfilling my destiny, by killing Ozara once he struck. In these few seasons that we have spent traveling, only a few notable things have happened. Diablo, Caesar and I spent a lot of time together, and while Diablo and Caesar did talk with the other two, I did not. I just couldn't bring myself to talk to neither Lucana nor Moteas, especially after seeing the two of them talking to each other so often. Ever since our trip to the Montesian tribe, which was right after us visiting the Hornest, Moteas and Lucana started talking with each other every day. And while I know it was wrong of me, I couldn't help but feel jealous every time I looked at Moteas. Our trip across Castana finished with the Anthill Kingdom, and only here, 3 seasons into our trip, did I finally talk with Lucana for the first time since we became great knights. We met in the hall of the palace we stayed in. Hey, I said, as I passed by her. Hey, she stopped and said, then wait. I turn around. Listen, then, she starts. We're going to spend who knows how long living with each other. We can't do this. We can't keep ignoring each other. What happened, happened. It's all in the past. Move on, then. I have. I just stood there silent, numb. She rolled her eyes and left. I don't remember much else about that day. The only thing I know is that I cried. I cried because I knew it was over. I knew I would never be with her. I guess it was never meant to be. After Anthill, we came back to the Master King's palace, where for the next season all we would do is prepare for Ozara. We trained every single day. Each one of us sparred with everyone at one point or another. For the first 2 weeks, this was all we've done. Spar with each other all day, every day. Except when we ate, of course, or slept. But for the next 2 weeks, it was different. We had to come up with strategies. Strategies to defeat Ozara. And this was where the big problem laid. We could not agree on the strategy we would go for. Caesar wanted others to distract Ozara while he poisoned him. He wanted to be the one to take him down. Diablo wanted to be the shield, taking each one of Ozara's attacks, distracting the beast for the others to take him down together. Basically, he wanted to be the scapegoat, sacrificing himself to save Castana. Lucana and Moteas wanted to fight him in the sky, half of us on Caesar's back, the other half on Moteas's. And I didn't really know what I wanted. I just knew that I didn't want Diablo's idea. I didn't want him to die. I didn't want anyone to die. The bear noticed our disagreements and came up with a solution. He would decide on the strategy. We only needed to execute it. The bear made us all come to his chamber one day. We all kneeled down before him as he spoke. My great knights, you have all been training tirelessly, but you lack something. You lack unity. And unity is precisely what the previous generation of great knights lacked too. It is why they are no more. I will not allow you to follow their path. Thus I will show you unity. The truth is, the previous great knights stumbled upon something while we were traveling across the kingdom. They stumbled upon a weapon, one made of material unknown to us, a weapon so big, sharp, and heavy, it could split Ozara in half with a single slash. But the thing is, due to their lack of unity, they could not agree on how to use the weapon. The Stag Beetle brothers didn't want to use it at all. Tigra and Giganti wanted to set it up as a trap that would fall on Ozara's head if he were to fly below it. And your father, then, well, he wanted to use the weapon himself, as he was the only one who could actually lift it. He wanted to strike Ozara with it directly. But due to the many disagreements between them, I ultimately decided that they would be forbidden to use the weapon. This was perhaps one of my biggest mistakes, as all of you know, many innocents died, along with all 5 of the previous great knights. That day I swore that the next time it will be different. I swore that once the new great knights have been chosen, I would do everything I could to come up with a plan, a strategy that will ensure no innocents would die at the hands of Ozara ever again. And now, after weeks of watching Ukraine, I think I have come up with something that will achieve this. Please, follow me, my knights. The Master King started slowly walking towards the back of his palace, the storage room. We were all surprised and confused by Master King's story. None of us knew that this was the truth behind the previous great knights. This made me feel weird, knowing that my father would maybe still be alive if only the previous knights were more united. It made me think about us, the current great knights. It made me reflect on myself, my emotions. Lucana was right. Whatever happened, happened. We cannot change the past, but we can change the future. And change it I will. That was the moment I swore to myself that I would never let my emotions get in the way of my job, in the way of protecting this kingdom. It didn't matter how I felt. The only thing that mattered was the safety of this kingdom and its citizens. Nothing else mattered, especially not the pointless emotions of a single dung beetle. When we entered the storage room, we had a sight to see. The room was empty. Well, empty except the one thing that was in it. A sword. No, it was too large, too enormous to be called a sword, too heavy, too rough to be called a simple weapon. It was something that came up straight from the gates of hell itself. Isn't it beautiful? In its own twisted way, of course, Dabir said after a few minutes of letting us look at the sword in amusement. I'm sure you have the same questions in mind. The Master King continued. What is this? How was it made? How will we use this to defeat the Grand Menace? All valid questions. Unfortunately, I do not have the answers for the first 2 questions. I do not know what this is. I simply call it the Crow Cutter. We found it outside the Castanean tree. It was buried near the root prison. Nobody knows how it got there, who made it and for what purpose, nor what it's made of. All we know is that this is the key to killing Ozara. Dabir was loud and clear. Now, it is time I tell you how you will kill Ozara. Dabir looked at me, before finishing the sentence. Then the mighty, you are the key component to this plan.